Family is often painted as the safest place we can run to, the table where love is served, the arms that welcome us no matter what, the foundation that holds us when the world outside feels cruel. But what happens when the very people meant to protect us become the ones who wound us? What happens when blood ties become heavy chains, and the voices that should lift us instead drag us lower and lower? It's a hard truth, one many people carry silently, afraid to admit. Sometimes the people who share your last name can also share words that cut deeper than knives. And yet, even in those painful spaces, God has not left you alone. He sees, He hears, He knows. His eyes have witnessed every moment you left a family gathering in tears, every sleepless night replaying hurtful words, every time your spirit sank under their weight. And because He loves you too much to let destruction be your story, He acts. His protection may not always arrive in the ways you expect. It may not be lightning bolts from heaven or a dramatic escape that everyone notices. More often than not, His protection comes quietly, through closed doors, through inner unrest, through distance that grows without explanation. It comes as whispers in your spirit that you can't ignore.
This journey we are about to take is a journey through 6 clear signs that God is actively protecting you from a family member who brings you down. Some signs may feel familiar, others may surprise you, but all of them carry the same truth. God is guarding you, even when you didn't realize it. And as you listen, reflect on your own story. Maybe what felt like loss was really love. Maybe what looked like rejection was really God's redirection. And maybe what hurt so badly was the very thing that set you free. Close your eyes and imagine this moment. You are sitting at the dinner table, laughter filling the air, plates passing from hand to hand. For a brief while, your heart feels light, your shoulders relaxed. But then the door opens, and they walk in. That one family member whose presence changes everything. You can't explain why, but instantly your spirit feels tight. The joy leaks out like water from a cracked glass. The air grows heavy, and suddenly the peace you had is gone. This is not random. This is not just you. Peace is one of the greatest treasures God gives His children. It is the soft blanket over the soul, the calm river that flows within, even when storms rage. And when peace leaves you the very moment a certain person enters the room, it is not coincidence. It is discernment. The Holy Spirit inside you is alerting you, raising a quiet alarm. Pay attention. Something here is not safe for your heart.
You may try to rationalize it. You may whisper to yourself, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I just need to try harder. But the pattern doesn't change. Each encounter brings the same storm inside you. And no matter how you mask it on the outside, deep down you know peace vanishes whenever they are near. That is not a small thing. That is God's first layer of protection. Because peace is like a compass. It points you toward what is good, safe, and aligned with His will. When someone consistently disrupts that peace, it is not to be ignored. God is showing you, not with words, but with a silence that screams, that this person's presence drains your soul. And His protection may be as simple and as powerful as removing the peace you once felt so you cannot stay blind any longer. Have you noticed how sometimes relationships don't end with explosions, shouting, or dramatic betrayal? Instead, they quietly fade. Calls grow less frequent. Invitations stop arriving. Texts remain unanswered. And what was once daily contact becomes an occasional greeting at holidays. At first, it confuses you. You wonder, did I offend them? Did I fail somehow? But soon you realize the distance isn't rejection. It's protection.
God often works in ways that baffle our logic, but preserve our souls. Instead of constant conflict, He allows circumstances to slowly pull you apart. The busyness of life, misunderstandings that never get cleared, or interests that drift in different directions. All of these become the quiet tools He uses to create separation. And while your human heart aches for closeness, your spirit quietly begins to heal. It hurts, of course, because society teaches us that family bonds must always remain tight, no matter what. But sometimes those bonds are not ropes of love. They are chains of control, manipulation, or abuse. And when God breaks them, He does so gently. He doesn't rip your life apart. He simply allows space to grow until you notice you are freer, calmer, lighter, without their constant pull. So do not rush to close every gap. Do not chase every distance. Sometimes the silence is not the enemy. Sometimes the distance is God Himself, stepping between you and pain like a shield no one else can see. Masks can only last so long. For years, perhaps, this family member has played the role well, smiling in public, offering help when eyes were watching, speaking words that sounded caring but carried poison underneath. And you, like many, believed it. But then one day, something happens. A slip of the tongue, a conversation overheard, a truth exposed that can no longer be denied. Suddenly, the mask falls, and you see who they really are. The moment hurts. It shakes you to your core. You replay old conversations, wondering how you missed the signs. Anger boils. How could they do this? How long has this been going on? And yet, under the hurt, there is also relief, because now you know. Now the fog has lifted, and the light of truth has pierced the shadows where manipulation once lived. God never delights in your pain, but He delights in your freedom. He reveals truth not to break you, but to set you free. He doesn't want you to stay blind, chained by illusions, hoping in a false image of someone who never truly had your best at heart. And so, He allows the mask to slip, the lie to unravel, the secret to come out into the open. Yes, the truth cuts like a knife, but it is also the key that unlocks your prison. Because once you see clearly, you can no longer be deceived. And that clarity, painful as it is one of God's strongest forms of protection. You may have noticed this before. Every attempt to reconnect with that family member seems to fail. You call, but the line drops. You plan a visit, but it's canceled last minute. You suggest reconciliation, but something always comes up to block it. At first, this can feel frustrating. You ask yourself, why can't things just work out? Why does every door seem to slam shut? But the truth is, not every closed door is a punishment. Many are protection. God sees what lies behind doors you're desperate to open. He knows the conversations that would leave you in tears, the manipulations that would leave you doubting yourself again, the arguments that would poison your spirit for days. Out of His love, He keeps those doors locked tight, no matter how much you knock. What feels like failure is often His way of saying, "This path does not lead to life. Trust me, I am sparing you." It's natural to resist. We are trained to believe that family reconciliation is always good, that every relationship must be fixed no matter the cost. But God knows the difference between reconciliation that heals and reconciliation that harms. He knows when the timing isn't right, when hearts are still hard, when your soul is not safe in that environment. And so He steps in, and He closes doors that you, in your own strength, might have forced wide open. So the next time a plan falls through, the next time another attempt at closeness collapses without explanation,
Don't just see disappointment, see the hand of God. Closed doors are not always rejection. They are sometimes His strongest walls of protection. God doesn't only speak directly into your spirit. Sometimes He uses the voices of others. You may be talking to a trusted friend, a mentor, or even another family member, and they quietly say, "Something about them doesn't feel right." Or perhaps you hear, "Be careful. I don't have peace about the way they treat you." At first, you might shrug it off, telling yourself, "They don't know them the way I do."
But then it happens again. Another voice, from another source, echoes the same warning. Different people, different settings, but the same message: be careful. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. God often knows that our hearts, blinded by loyalty or love, may refuse to hear His quiet whispers, and so He raises the volume by sending multiple voices to repeat the truth until we cannot ignore it any longer. It is painful because deep down we want others to validate our hope. We want them to say, "Don't worry, they'll change, keep trying." But when the opposite happens, when warning after warning comes, it is God's way of pulling us out of denial. He knows how easy it is to justify, to excuse, to say, "But they're family." So He gently but firmly speaks through others to keep us from harm. When people who love you, who have no hidden agenda, all point in the same direction, listen. Their words may sting, but they may also be the very shield God is placing between you and pain. There are moments when you kneel down and pray, "Lord, should I keep trying with them? Should I stay close? Should I fight for this?" And while you long for a yes, what you keep receiving is a restless no. The peace doesn't come when you imagine staying. Instead, peace only arrives when you picture letting go. That is not your imagination. That is God answering.
God's answers are not always the ones we want, but they are always the ones we need. Sometimes His no feels like rejection, but in reality, it is redirection towards safety and healing. When your spirit grows heavy every time you try to reconcile, but lightens when you consider creating distance, that is His voice speaking louder than words. Step away. This is not where I want you. It's tempting to argue in prayer. We say things like, "But Lord, they're family. Surely you want me to hold on." But God sees what you cannot. He knows the nights of tears you don't need to relive, the cycles of abuse you don't need to repeat, the exhaustion that will only drain your calling. His no is never to punish you, it is to protect you. So when prayer keeps giving you an uncomfortable answer, trust that answer. Even if it breaks your heart for a season, it will guard your heart for a lifetime. Think for a moment about how you feel when that family member is not around. Suddenly, your shoulders drop, the tension in your chest eases. Your mind, which used to replay arguments or anticipate their next comment, finally grows quiet. At night, you fall asleep faster. In the morning, you wake up lighter. Their absence, though confusing at first, begins to feel like relief.
That relief is not accidental. It is spiritual. God is showing you, in a way you cannot deny, that their presence brought weight and conflict to your soul. He is letting you experience freedom so that you can recognize what true peace feels like again. Because sometimes we get so used to chaos that we forget what calm feels like. When the storm leaves and you suddenly hear the birds sing again, you realize how loud the thunder really was. That's what happens when a toxic presence is removed. You realize just how much of your joy and peace they were stealing every single day. So don't mistake relief for coldness.
Don't confuse freedom with bitterness. If your spirit breathes easier when they are gone, it is not hatred, it is healing. And that healing is evidence of God's protection at work in your life. Then comes one of the clearest signs of all. After distance is established, after truth is revealed, after doors close, your life begins to blossom. Suddenly, you notice energy returning that you didn't know you had lost. Your laughter comes back, slowly at first, then fully. New opportunities open in your work, in your relationships, in your spiritual walk. It's as if the fog has lifted and light finally breaks through. This is not coincidence. This is the fruit of God's protection. Toxic connections are like heavy weights on your soul. They keep you from rising, from dreaming, from stepping boldly into your purpose. Once that weight is lifted, it feels like wings growing on your back. You walk lighter, you breathe freer, and you begin to see possibilities again.
You may even notice that your health improves, your creativity flows, your faith feels stronger. That is what happens when the negative influence is removed. Your spirit is no longer drained, so it can finally grow. What you thought was an ending turns out to be the beginning of something new, something God always wanted for you but couldn't give you until you were free. Flourishing after separation is not an accident. It is proof that God didn't just remove someone. He was making room for blessings, peace, and growth you could not have experienced otherwise. Admitting that a family member can be harmful is one of the hardest things you will ever do. It feels unnatural, it feels painful, and it can feel lonely. But God never leaves you to face that truth alone. He walks with you, step by step, turning every tear into testimony, every rejection into redirection, and every heartbreak into healing. The 6 signs we've uncovered, the loss of peace, the growth of distance, the revelation of truth, the shutting of doors, the warnings through others, the answers in prayer, are all proof that God's hand is active in your life. Add to that the inner peace you feel when they are gone and the flourishing that comes after, and you see the full picture. God has been protecting you all along.
Looking back, you may realize that the things that hurt the most are actually the things that saved you. The relationships you thought were breaking were actually chains being shattered. The silence you thought was abandonment was actually the shelter of His wings covering you. So today, trust Him. Trust that His protection is always for your good. If God is protecting you from a family member who brings you down, it's because He is preparing you for freedom, joy, and a future where His love defines you more than anyone's words ever could. Remember, when God removes someone from your life, it's never to harm you, but to make room for greater peace and purpose. Stay strong, stay faithful. This is More Motivation reminding you that your best days are still ahead.